I woke up on Christmas Eve to a silence that did not belong in that house. For years. This morning always started the same way: my mother's voice sharp in the kitchen, my father's footsteps pacing the hall, someone arguing about coffee. That day, there was nothing. No movement, no sound. Just air that felt deliberately emptied. I sat up and checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages. That was the first warning. I walked into the hallway. Every door I opened confirmed the same thing. Beds stripped clean, closets hollowed out, drawers left open like mouths that had already finished talking. This was not a rushed trip. This was planned. I went back to my phone and opened the family group chat. Or tried to. The screen refreshed once. Then a small line of text appeared. "You are no longer a member of this group." I stared at it longer than I needed to. That line told me more than any argument ever had. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team of the channel Revenge Amber, inspired by real-life situations to convey lessons about family, emotion, and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. My name is Laura Kensington. I work in risk analytics. When something breaks, I do not panic. I document. I called my mother first, straight to voicemail. I called my father. Voicemail again. My brother Philip. Nothing. My sister Isabella. Silence. I did not call Henry yet. I already knew what he would say, or what he would not say. I walked into the kitchen and noticed what they had left behind. The refrigerator hummed. The lights were on. The internet still worked. All the things that stayed because they were mine. My phone buzzed. A message from an aunt I barely spoke to anymore. "Did you forget they told you Palm Springs?" It was supposed to be a surprise. A surprise. For everyone but me. I typed back slowly. "They told me I was staying." The reply came a minute later. "Well, someone had to." That was the moment the power shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a door closing in another room. If you are listening to this and something in it feels uncomfortably familiar, stay with me. Not because this is my story, but because you might recognize pieces of your own. By mid-morning, my phone was still silent. That was when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. I sat at the dining table and opened my laptop. Habit, not instinct. I work in risk analytics for a regional financial institution in Chicago. When something feels wrong, I do not react. I trace patterns. I look for intent. My phone rang as soon as I logged in. It was my father. "Laura," he said. Already irritated. "Why are you calling everyone I woke up alone on Christmas Eve?" I replied. That seemed worth checking. A pause. Then a sigh. "Your mother told you. We needed a break." "You removed me from the family chat," I said. "That wasn't a break. You're reading too much into it," he said. "This isn't about you." That was the first lie. Not the worst one, but the cleanest. "I pay the utilities." I said. "All of them. If something goes wrong, it will be about me." "Don't be dramatic," he snapped. "You're always like this. Everything has to be documented." "Yes," I said, "because things keep disappearing." He hung up without saying goodbye. A minute later, my mother called. "Laura, sweetheart," she said softly. "You sound upset." "I woke up in an empty house," I said. "Explain that. We talked about this." She replied, "You said you were busy with work. You said you didn't mind." "I never said that. I said I had deadlines." "Well," she said, her tone sharpening, "someone had to be responsible." There it was. Responsibility. The word they used when they meant obligation. "You could have asked," I said. "We didn't need to," she answered. "You always handle things." That sentence landed heavier than the silence had. I closed my laptop and stood up. My hands were steady. My breathing was normal. This wasn't anger. This was clarity. I walked through the house again, slower this time. I noticed details I had ignored for years. The appliances registered under my name, the internet account billed to my email, the mortgage notifications forwarded to my phone because I was the one who never missed a payment. My phone buzzed again. A text from my brother Philip. Relax. It's just a trip. Don't make this weird. I typed back. You're sleeping in a room I help pay for. A long pause. Then that's not how family works. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I opened a new file on my laptop and titled it with my full name. Not out of spite, out of accuracy. When systems fail, you don't argue with them. You shut them down carefully, one dependency at a time. People think family dynamics are emotional. They are not. They are structural. Once I stopped listening to what my family said and started watching what they did, everything made sense. My father, Edward Kensington, liked to talk about stability. He used the word often, usually when nothing was stable at all. This house represents stability, he once told me, standing in the living room with his arms crossed. We worked too hard to lose it. He said he meant me. My mother, Catherine, preferred softer language. You're just better at handling things, she would say, placing a hand on my arm. Not everyone is wired like you. Her compliments always came with instructions attached. Philip, my older brother, had learned early that confidence could replace contribution. I'm lining something up. He told us whenever money came up. You'll see. Big things are coming. He said it so often that no one asked for details anymore. Isabella was different. She didn't promise anything. She simply assumed it would be paid for. Tuition, rent, trips. When my mother mentioned her school costs once, she waved it off. It's an investment, she said. She deserves the experience. No one ever said that about me. Henry noticed things. He always had. He worked part-time at a bookstore near campus and slipped small bills onto the counter when groceries ran low. He never said anything about it. Neither did anyone else. One night, about a year after I started helping with the house, I brought up the numbers. I've been covering $2,400 a month. I said, sitting at the table with my laptop open. That's most of the mortgage. My father frowned. We didn't ask you to keep track. I'm not accusing anyone. I said, I just need to understand the plan. The plan? My mother repeated, smiling tightly. Is that we get through this together? Philip laughed from the couch. See, you always make it sound like a transaction. It is a transaction, I said. Money doesn't disappear because we don't talk about it. That's such a cold way to look at family. Isabella said. You make everything uncomfortable. That word again, uncomfortable. It always surfaced when I asked for clarity. Later that night, my mother knocked on my door. You embarrassed your father, she said quietly. I stated facts. I replied, facts can wait. She said, feelings can't. But feelings had waited. For years. Every system needs a load bearer. In our family, that was me. Not because I volunteered, but because no one else stepped forward. When the refrigerator broke, I replaced it. When the internet lagged, I upgraded it. When utilities needed organizing, my name went on the accounts because I was the one who answered emails. Thank you was never part of the exchange. Instead, there were comments. The fridge is too loud. The internet drops sometimes. You're lucky you can afford this. Lucky. That was the word they used when they meant useful. I stopped trying to rebalance the system after that. I just observed it. Systems reveal themselves when pressure builds, and ours had been under pressure for a long time. The house didn't belong to all of us equally. It belonged to whoever paid to keep it standing. It started 4 years earlier, on a Sunday evening that was framed as a family meeting. My father stood near the fireplace, not looking at anyone. My mother sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded like she was bracing herself. Philip and Isabella hovered, suddenly attentive in a way they never were when bills arrived. Things have shifted at work, my father said finally. It's temporary. My mother reached for his hand. We just need to bridge the gap. She looked at me when she said that. How much of a gap? I asked. $2,400 a month. She said quickly. Just for a while, until things settle. Philip exhaled like it wasn't his problem. Isabella checked her phone. I remember staring at the carpet and doing the math without meaning to. My take-home pay, my savings, what that number would quietly erase. I can help, I said. But we need a timeline. My father nodded. Of course. This isn't permanent. My mother smiled. You're such a relief. Laura, I don't know what we'd do without you. That was the first payment. The second came without discussion. So did the third. By the fourth, no one mentioned it anymore. The transfer became automatic, scheduled on the first of every month. $2,400, leaving my account before I finished my morning coffee. At month 12, I asked again. I've sent almost $30,000, I said, sliding my laptop across the table. Can we talk about next steps? My father waved it off. You're keeping us afloat. Isn't that what matters? It matters to me, I said, because I can't plan around silence. My mother sighed. You always need things spelled out. I need things acknowledged. I said. She tilted her head. You're acting like we're taking advantage of you. No one contradicted her. Philip stared at the television. Isabella shifted uncomfortably. At month 24, the number crossed 50,000. By then, it had stopped feeling like help and started feeling like gravity. One night, after a late shift, I came home to find a stack of mail on the counter, mortgage statements, insurance notices, all addressed to my parents, all forwarded to my email because I was the one who never missed a payment. I said something the next morning. I've paid over $70,000, I said. I need this documented. My father finally looked at me. Are you asking for ownership? I'm asking for clarity. I replied. That's not how family works, Isabella said from the doorway. My mother's voice hardened. If you're going to keep score, maybe you shouldn't help at all. The room went quiet. I looked at the faces around me. No fear, no concern, just irritation, like I had interrupted something convenient. Just for a while, my mother repeated, softer now. At month 42, the total reached $100,800. No one mentioned timelines anymore. The while had stretched into permanence, and I had been folded into the structure like a beam no one noticed until it cracked. I stopped asking questions after that. I didn't need answers anymore. I had numbers. The shift happened quietly. No argument marked it. No announcement. Just a change in how people spoke to me. One evening, the refrigerator stopped cooling. I was the one who noticed because I was the one who checked temperatures, who threw out spoiled food, who replaced things before anyone else complained. I'll handle it, I said at dinner. I'll order a new one tomorrow. My father nodded without looking up. Good. Make sure it's energy efficient. My mother added. And not white? White looks cheap. Philip smirked. Since you're buying, get the one with the screen. I'm not buying a screen, I said. I'm buying something functional. A week later, the new refrigerator arrived. It was registered in my name. The warranty was in my email. The delivery confirmation came to my phone. My mother opened it, frowned, and said, It's louder than the old one. That was it. No thank you. No acknowledgement. A month later, the internet started lagging during Philip's late-night calls. He stormed into the kitchen, phone in hand. It keeps dropping. He said, I can't work like this. You don't work, I replied. He ignored that. Fix it. I'll upgrade the plan, I said. But it will be in my name. Whatever, he said. Just make it better. When the bill arrived, my father glanced at it and said, It's gone up. Yes, I said, because you asked for better service. My mother sighed. You're so sensitive about money. I'm precise. I said, There's a difference. The utilities followed the same pattern. Gas, electric, water. Every account transferred quietly into my name because I was the one who never missed a payment. when something broke. My phone buzzed. When something needed approval. My email filled up. One night, I found Henry at the counter, counting cash. Groceries, he said quickly, sliding a bill into a drawer. I didn't want Mom to worry. I closed the drawer for him. You don't have to do that. He shrugged. Someone should. The next morning, my mother cornered me in the hallway. You need to stop making Henry feel bad, she said. I didn't. I replied. He sees you doing everything, she said. It makes the rest of us look careless. I am not responsible for how that looks, I said. Her expression hardened. You live here because of us. I pay to live here, I said. That's the same thing, she snapped. It wasn't. And that was the moment I understood the role I had been assigned. I wasn't the daughter they protected or the child they worried about. I was the one they leaned on until the weight felt normal to them. I went back to my room and opened my laptop. I didn't create a budget. I created a list. Appliances, accounts, payments, dates. I didn't feel angry. I felt organized. And once you see the shape of a role clearly, you can finally decide whether to keep playing it. I didn't plan to call anyone. The truth arrived anyway. It came through my Aunt Marianne, my father's younger sister, the one who always answered the phone too quickly. I dialed her number because it was the only one I hadn't tried yet. Laura, she said, cheerful and loud. Merry Christmas Eve. Where are they? I asked. A pause, then laughter in the background, music, glasses clinking. Oh, she said lightly. Didn't they tell you Palm Springs? They rented a place near the golf resort. Gorgeous weather. Who is there? I said. All of them, she replied. Your parents. Philip. Isabella. Even Henry came along. Henry. My grip tightened around the phone. They said you couldn't get away, she continued. Work stuff. You know how it is. I closed my eyes, put my mother on. There was a muffled exchange. I heard my name. Then my mother's voice came through, already impatient. Laura, what's wrong? She said. We're in the middle of something. You left without telling me. I said. We talked about this. She replied. You said you were busy. I said I had deadlines. I said. I didn't say I was staying alone on Christmas Eve. A sigh. The kind meant to sound tired, not guilty. Someone had to stay back, she said. The house can't be empty. I live there. I said. Yes, she said, sharper now. And you're responsible. You always are. In the background, I heard Isabella laugh. Philip said something I couldn't make out. My mother covered the phone briefly, then came back on the line. Don't start this now, she said. We needed a reset. You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. You used my money. I said, for this. We are a family, she said. That money supports all of us. It supports you. I said, and you didn't even ask. Her tone shifted, losing its softness. You didn't need the money. You're not like us. That sentence landed clean and final. I need clarity, I said, not explanations. She laughed once, short and dismissive. You always do this. You turn everything into a ledger. I turned it into a ledger because you turned me into a line item. I said, silence, not shock, not regret, just calculation. We'll talk when we get back, she said. Try not to make this bigger than it is. The line went dead. I stood in the kitchen with the phone still pressed to my ear. The refrigerator hummed. The lights stayed on. Everything that worked did so because I paid for it. My phone buzzed. A text from Philip. Relax. You're acting like we abandoned you. I typed back. You planned this without me. Another pause. Then you always land on your feet. That's why this made sense. That was it. Not apology, not denial, just confirmation. Henry texted last. A single line. I'm sorry. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I set the phone down. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank records. 42 transfers, $2,400 each, $100,800. I didn't feel humiliated. I felt documented. This wasn't about being left behind. It was about being assigned a role without consent and punished for noticing. I closed the laptop and opened a new file. I didn't title it with anger. I titled it with accuracy. Withdrawal plan. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I didn't call anyone back. If someone had to stay behind, it wouldn't be me anymore. I didn't announce my decision. I operationalized it. The first call I made wasn't to a lawyer. It was to an old friend named Claire who managed residential leases in South End, Boston. We hadn't spoken in years, but she answered on the second ring. I need a place, I said. Immediately. Secure building. No shared mailroom access. She didn't ask why. How long? A year, I said. Maybe longer. I have a 2-bedroom unit, she replied. Available in 3 days. Rent is within your range. Send the paperwork, I said. The lease arrived in my inbox an hour later. I signed it without hesitation. For the first time in years, my name was attached to something that was only mine. The second call was to a moving company that specialized in short-notice relocations. The dispatcher sounded tired. You understand this is a holiday week, he said. I understand. I replied, I'll pay the premium. I'll need proof of ownership for large appliances, he added. You'll have it. I said. That night, I pulled out every receipt I had ever kept, appliance invoices, warranty registrations, utility contracts, email confirmations. I organized them into a single binder, tabbed and indexed. It wasn't anger driving me. It was precision. My mother called while I was sorting papers. Where are you? She demanded. I'm at home, I said. You're being distant, she said. We'll talk when we're back. There's nothing to discuss. I replied. I'm closing my accounts. Her voice sharpened. You can't do that. I can. I said. They're in my name. You're doing this to punish us, she said. No, I said. I'm doing this to exit. She laughed, brittle. You think you can just take things and walk away? I'm not taking things, I said. I'm reclaiming what I paid for. She hung up. The movers arrived 2 days later. 3 men, quiet, professional. I handed the crew lead the binder. These items are mine, I said. Everything is documented. He flipped through the pages, nodded once, and said, Understood. They removed the refrigerator first, then the washer and dryer. The dishwasher came out with a metallic scrape that echoed longer than it should have. I stood nearby, answering questions, signing forms. My father called as they were loading the truck. What are you doing? He asked. I'm moving, I said. You can't empty the house, he said. That's our home. It's your address, I replied. Not my responsibility anymore. You're going to regret this, he said. I already regret staying, I said, and ended the call. Before the truck pulled away, I logged into my utility accounts. Gas, electric, water, internet. I scheduled each service termination for noon the next day. The confirmation emails arrived one by one. When the house finally went quiet, it felt different than it had on Christmas Eve. That silence wasn't imposed. It was chosen. I locked the door, left the key on the counter, and walked out without looking back. Withdrawals aren't dramatic. They're deliberate, and once completed, they are irreversible. The letter arrived at my new address 3 weeks later, forwarded from Naperville. My name was typed cleanly on the envelope, familiar enough that I opened it without hesitation. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't a notice. It was a statement. A home equity line of credit had been opened against my parents' house. The amount was $68,000. My name appeared on the first page, listed as a co-borrower. I stared at it, then read it again. Slowly, carefully. I had not applied for anything. I had not signed anything. I called the bank. I need the original documents, I said. All of them. The woman on the line sounded practiced. Are you disputing the account? I am verifying it. I replied. The files arrived by secure email an hour later. I opened them at my kitchen table, my laptop steady beneath my hands. Page after page. Then the signature. My name. In ink. It was close enough to fool someone who wanted to be fooled. The loop on the L, the sharp angle of the A, but the dot above the I was wrong. My mother always dotted her I with a circle. I never did. I checked the notarization. Remote online verification. Approved during the pandemic. The notary's name was familiar. A woman my mother played tennis with. I called her Janine. I said, "This is Laura Kensington. I'm reviewing a document you notarized." Silence. Then a nervous laugh. "Oh, hi, Laura. Were you present when I signed this?" I asked. Another pause. "Your mother said you were traveling. She said you'd already signed and just needed the stamp. So you notarized my signature without me," I said. "I didn't think it was a big deal," she said quickly. "Elaine was in a hurry." "Thank you," I said, and ended the call. I traced the money next. The entire amount had been transferred in a single wire to an account labeled Kensington Anniversary Fund. From there, the trail was clean and careless. A luxury rental deposit in Palm Springs, a jewelry appraisal, a private tuition payment applied early. The vacation hadn't just excluded me, it had been financed with my identity. I forwarded everything to an attorney named Valerie Knox, a civil litigator recommended by a colleague. She called me within 10 minutes. "This is fraud," she said flatly. "Identity theft, wire fraud, multiple counts. I don't want criminal charges," I said. There was a pause. "Why?" "Because my youngest brother didn't sign anything," I said. "And prison would destroy him anyway." Another pause. Then we proceed civilly. Quiet. Absolute. My mother called that night, her voice shrill with forced confidence. "We got a notice from the bank," she said. "You've been asking questions. You forged my name." I replied. "It was for the family." She said. "You weren't using your credit. You stole my identity," I said. "And you used it to leave me behind." My father took the phone. "You're overreacting," he said. "This can be fixed. It will be fixed," I said. "With a settlement." My attorney laid out the terms the next day. Full restitution, all legal fees paid, a written confession signed and notarized, a permanent no-contact order. My parents protested until they understood the alternative. Then they went quiet. When the agreement arrived for my signature, I read it twice. Not for reassurance, for finality. The credit line was closed. The confession was filed. The order was issued. I didn't feel victorious. I felt resolved. They had crossed from entitlement into crime because they believed I would absorb it. They believed I would stay silent. They were wrong. And this time, the ledger closed in my favor. The settlement finalized on a Tuesday afternoon. No courtroom, no raised voices, just signatures, confirmations, and a silence that felt earned. My attorney called first. "It's done," Valerie said. "Funds are returned, fees covered. The order is active." "Thank you," I replied. "You handled this cleanly," she said. "Most people don't. I wasn't trying to win," I said. "I was trying to finish." I heard from my parents once more, through a message forwarded by Valerie. No apology, just a sentence meant to sound dignified. "We hope you find peace." I didn't respond. A week later, Henry texted, just my name. Then, I didn't know how to stop it. I typed back once. I know, nothing else followed. That was enough. Life didn't transform overnight. It narrowed, simplified. The noise receded. I moved fully into my Boston condo, a place chosen for function, not memory. I paid my own bills. I cooked when I wanted. I slept without listening for footsteps that weren't mine. At work, my manager called me into her office. "We're expanding the risk division," she said. "I want you leading it." I nodded. "When do we start?" "Immediately," she said. "You've already been doing the work." That night, I unpacked the last box. Inside it were old documents I hadn't needed to submit copies of statements, emails, receipts, proof of a life I no longer had to justify. I labeled the box carefully. Kensington accounts, closed. I slid it onto the top shelf of the closet and shut the door. Before turning off the light, I paused. Not because I missed them, but because I knew someone else might be listening to this story, wondering if stepping back made them cruel, or ungrateful, or alone. If any part of this feels familiar, sit with it. Talk about it. Share it with someone who understands. Stories like this only stay heavy when they're carried in silence. I didn't lose my family. I stopped financing a system that mistook my silence for consent. Some accounts don't need to be reopened. They just need to be closed properly.